Welcome to Crossroads Church. Whether you're connecting online, in person, or on demand, thank you for making this time part of your week. If you are new to Crossroads, you might be asking yourself, what is this place all about? Well, it's pretty simple. Peace on earth. We are an open and affirming community of people committed to following the peacemaking path of Jesus. And this peacemaking path leads us to focus our work on rewriting what we call the 5 unacceptable truths. These unacceptable truths are 5 realities that hinder human flourishing and destroy peace on earth. Together, we work to replace spiritual emptiness with spiritual vitality, poverty with physical and financial flourishing, fear of the other with inclusion and affirmation, illiteracy with education and opportunity, and modern-day slavery with freedom. This is what we mean when we say, hope is here. Over the next hour, we will experience the divine mystery together as we sing a few songs, listen for wisdom, and share in communion so that we might leave here inspired and equipped to follow the peacemaking path of Jesus in our everyday, normal lives. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God.
Ring the bells, this time I mean it. Bid the hatred very well. Give back the pieces of my Jesus. Take your counterfeit to hell. And bang the drums, this means war, but not the kind you're waiting for. We say mercy won't be rationed here. That's what we're fighting for.
Well, it's fair and love and war, and what the hell is love and even for? If we can't sing it loud enough, we'll keep on adding voices up.
Ring the bells, ring the bells, ring the bells, ring the bells. Move your feet, you tiny people. You've been hiding for so long behind your statues and your steeples. Does that hit too close to home? And I got faith to move the mountain and to watch that mountain move. It's time for words to fall like thunder, the sound of justice breaking through.
Well, it's fair and love and war, and what the hell is love and even for? The world likes and the martyrs sing, but love breaks through the Calvary.
Son, and I ain't the only one. Was in the throne room of a kingdom where I found that I belong. And I ain't scared to face a fortress. I have seen them fall before. With broken bones you built it, but it crumbles board by board.
Oh, it's fair and love and war, and what the hell is love and even for? If we can't sing it loud enough, we'll keep on.
This time I mean it. Bid the hatred fare thee well. Give back the pieces of my Jesus. Take your counterfeit to hell.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to Crossroads Online Broadcast. My name is Wendy Howe, and I'm the Director of Partners in Hope. If you haven't noticed, things are a little different right now, as we are in a season of transition, but we're excited for what this new chapter will bring, and we should be back with our regular live broadcasts sometime this fall. If you're new to Crossroads, we are a radically inclusive church with a deep love for the spiritually dissatisfied, deconstructing, disconnected, and those who love them. So when we say, all are welcome here, we really mean it. No fine print, no strings attached. To make this online broadcast the best experience possible, please follow the link in the description for all of our digital resources, including talk notes for today's message, digital giving, a donation link for the school supply drive to Edmondson, and our digital Connect card. If you are a regular attender, just put your name and email address and check the box regular attender. If you are new here, please check that box new here and fill out as much information as you feel comfortable sharing. If this is your first time with us this morning, we have a gift for you. It's a book called The God We Never Knew. It is especially helpful if you are deconstructing ways of thinking about God that were handed to you that no longer make sense. If you would like a free copy of this book, check the box on your Connect card and we will drop ship one to the address you provide. We're beginning to plan our next trip to Puerto Rico to support one of our partners in Hope, the Happy Givers. They're doing incredible work rewriting the 5 unacceptable truths in their community. This will be our 5th year partnering with them, and we'll have the opportunity to travel to Vega Baja to serve alongside them on whatever they need. The trip will take place January 27th through February 6, 2027. If you're interested in learning more about the Happy Givers trip, we'd love for you to join us on August 23rd following the second service in the Theater Cafe. Today is the last day to donate to our Edmondson Elementary School Drive. As a quick reminder, Partners in Hope is asking for monetary donations instead of school supplies so they can stretch every dollar further to purchase exactly what students and families need. Thank you for helping us take peacemaking action in our community. I have one more big reminder for you this morning. Our next O2 weekend is coming up on Labor Day weekend, September 6th, just 3 weeks away. O2 stands for Online Only, and that's exactly what it is. On select holiday weekends throughout the year, we don't meet in person. We want to give our awesome volunteers and staff a chance to breathe and reset. So instead of meeting in person, we prepare a special broadcast for everyone to catch, whether you're watching on demand in the mountains or tuning in on Sunday morning from your couch. So please mark your calendars for O2 on September 6th. That's all I have for you right now. So go ahead and grab your talk notes and enjoy this music video. After that, Ryan will be on for our next installment of our summer teaching series, You Asked For It.
Never said it would be easy. Never said there'd be no pain. But you promised you'd go with me, and your promises you always keep. Well, I confess how much I need you. I confess that I am weak. Can't promise I won't fail you, but your promises will not fail me. When I'm in the valley, I will fear no evil. When enemies surround me, you prepare a table. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me. There is beauty in the struggle. You don't waste a single day. Your presence is my shelter. Your presence is my victory. Yeah. When I'm in the valley, I will fear no evil. When enemies surround me, you prepare a table. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me. When I'm in the valley, I will fear no evil. Enemies surround me, about that? What you think about anything? What you think about you? What you think about me? What you think about that? What you think about that? What you think about anything? What you think about you? What you think about me? What you think about that? I get so sick and tired of faking all the moves. I know everything that comes between us. I'm gonna let you stew.
It's the 1960s, and across much of Latin America, something just doesn't add up. I mean, this is one of the most Christian places on earth. Churches fill cities and villages. Crosses hang on walls. People are being baptized. They're taking communion. They're attending Mass, praying the prayers, confessing the creeds. I mean, Christianity is everywhere. But so is crushing poverty. And a small percentage of the population controls enormous amounts of land and wealth, while millions of people struggle simply just to feed their families. Children are going hungry, workers labor for almost nothing, families, they're living without adequate housing or education or health care or really any meaningful opportunity. And when people begin challenging this idea, these systems that are keeping the poor poor, they're sometimes met with extreme violence. And all this is happening in countries that call themselves Christian. And eventually priests and theologians, they start asking some pretty dangerous questions. They start asking questions like, what good is a gospel that can save someone's soul but doesn't seem to care about the conditions that are destroying their life? Because the Christianity many of these communities had inherited had become something centered on something else. It was believe the right things. It was participate in the right rituals. It was confess your sins. It was obey the church. And if you do these things faithfully, then someday, after this life, your soul will be saved. Now, beliefs matter, and rituals, they can definitely be beautiful. But when getting souls into heaven becomes the center of Christianity, well, something dangerous can happen. Christianity no longer is able to change the world. It doesn't have to. It can just simply teach people how to endure the world, right? I mean, you're poor. Well, your reward is in heaven. Or you're suffering, God has a plan. Someone has power over you, well, just submit to authority. You're being mistreated, you just have to forgive. Don't question, don't cause trouble. Just make sure your soul is right with God. And religion, it can become very useful to the people who want to benefit from keeping the world exactly the way it is. I mean, worse, religious leaders, they've often become the gatekeepers of this idea of salvation. They get to decide what you have to believe and how you have to behave. They decide who's acceptable to God and who isn't. And all of a sudden, a gospel that was supposed to set people free just becomes another instrument for controlling them. But in the midst of this oppression and these things happening in Latin America, something else started to stir, right? People living at the bottom of these systems, they began reading their Bible together, and they began noticing certain things. Not because the words of the Bible had changed, but because the people reading those words had. And one of those people who was paying careful attention was a young Peruvian priest named Gustavo Gutierrez. Gutierrez was born in Lima, Peru in 1928. Interestingly, theology wasn't his first field of study. He had originally studied medicine, and he was intending to become a psychiatrist. Eventually, though, he felt called to the priesthood, and so he traveled to Europe where he studied philosophy, psychology, and theology. And he received the kind of serious theological education that prepared him to wrestle with all the great questions Christians had been debating for centuries, right? The big questions, like the questions that are in our Fresh Perspective group, right? Who is God? What is salvation? What is sin? Who is Jesus? And then he was ordained in 1959 and returned home to Peru. And all of a sudden there, those questions collided with something else, poverty. Not poverty as an abstract idea, but poverty with names and faces. Families struggling to survive, people working and remaining poor, children without opportunity. I mean, entire communities living on the margins of a society where wealth and power were concentrated in the hands of relatively few people. And Gutierrez, he began wrestling with a question that would shape the rest of his life and ministry. He wrestled with this idea of, how do you tell poor people that God loves them when the world around them continually tells them that their lives just don't matter? And Gutierrez slowly began to realize that poverty wasn't simply an unfortunate circumstance. Poverty could be produced. He realized that there were economic systems and political systems and social structures that benefited some people while keeping others poor. And suddenly, some of those big theological questions that he'd learned to ask and wrestle with while he was in Europe studying, they just didn't seem like enough. They didn't seem like good enough questions. And it's not because those questions weren't important, but it was just that they weren't the only questions that really mattered. Right? I mean, if you're sitting with a family that doesn't have enough food, the pressing question really isn't, well, what does Christianity teach about salvation of my soul? Right? There's another more urgent question. What does salvation mean right here, right now? What does good news mean to someone who's hungry? What does salvation mean to someone being actively exploited by those in power? What does the kingdom of God mean to someone who's never had power? And Gutierrez went back to scriptures with those kinds of questions. And he began seeing something that had been there all along. For example, he saw how Mary in Luke chapter 1, verse 52 and 53, she sings, God has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. God has filled the hungry with good things. And then he would read and he would listen to the way Jesus described his own mission in Luke chapter 4, verse 18 through 19. Jesus said, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because he has anointed me to bring good news to the poor, release to the captives, to let the oppressed go free. Those words didn't sound like instructions for escaping earth. They sounded like good news about what God wanted to do on earth. And out of this study, out of this wrestling, came one of the central convictions associated with what's called liberation theology. And that is that God has a preferential option for the poor. Now, I know that that can sound like somebody is saying that God loves poor people more than everybody else, but that's not what it means. Imagine with me for a moment a parent who has several children. Maybe that's you. Now, I'm assuming you love all of them. But if one of your children were to fall and get hurt, like where do you go? Right? You move towards the child who's hurting, not because you stopped loving the others, but because love moves you toward the suffering one. And this thing called liberation theology says, look at the biblical story, and that is where you keep finding God. Among enslaved people in Egypt, among the exiles, among widows and orphans, among foreigners, among the poor, among the sick, among the people pushed to the edges. In the story, God isn't neutral when some people have enormous power and other people are being crushed underneath it. Divine love moves towards suffering. And if that's where divine love moves, maybe that's where we ought to move too. And in 1971, Gutierrez gathered these ideas into a book that he called A Theology of Liberation. And it helped give a name to something that was already emerging across Latin America, this idea of liberation theology. And that's the question that you asked for this week. We had some great questions, believe it or not, about liberation theology. What is liberation theology? How is it related to peacemaking? Because that's what we're talking about today. And so liberation theology is a Christ-centered faith concerned not just with souls after death. In fact, that kind of falls to the wayside, but it's concerned with bodies right now. It's not only concerned with what we believe, but what our beliefs cause us to do. And I think its challenge, the challenge of liberation theology to us, can be summarized like this. Divine love moves us towards suffering, where our charity blossoms into solidarity and our beliefs become behaviors that dismantle the causes of suffering. And when you look at Jesus through this theological lens, something becomes difficult to miss. I mean, look at who Jesus continually moves toward. It's the poor, it's the sick, it's women, it's children, people that were considered sinners, people with different abilities, with disabilities, foreigners, people that were labeled as unclean and pushed to the edges by religious institutions. Jesus just keeps moving toward people society has learned to push away and to move away from. And it's not something we're imposing on the Jesus story. I mean, the gospel writers go out of their way to show us this. Right? There's a moment in the Gospel of Mark, in Mark chapter 2, when Jesus is sitting around a table eating with tax collectors and people that everyone simply called sinners. And in that moment, the religious leaders see it and they ask Jesus' disciples, why does he eat with tax collectors and sinners? I love that question, right? Because here's these religious leaders, and they aren't criticizing Jesus for what he believes about these people. We don't even really know. But they're criticizing him because of where he has chosen to sit. Right? Jesus is at their table. He's sharing food with them. He's close enough to know them. And when Jesus hears this criticism from the religious leaders, I love his response. In Mark chapter 2, verse 17, he says, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick, they do. In other words, this is exactly where we should expect to find Jesus. He's saying this is exactly where you should expect to find me. And that's the preferential option for the poor embodied in Jesus. Right there next to the one who's suffering. And divine love moves toward suffering, toward the excluded, toward the people everyone else has decided to move away from. But there's another side to this. Jesus doesn't simply move toward people who are carrying these heavy burdens, who are suffering. He confronts the people and the systems putting the burdens there. Right in Matthew chapter 23, verse 4, Jesus says of the religious leaders, listen to this, he says, they tie up heavy burdens, hard to bear, and lay them on the shoulders of others. That's an incredibly important part of the Jesus story, right? Jesus isn't simply asking, how can I help this person carry the burden? Sometimes Jesus is asking, who put this burden on them in the first place? And that is the movement that we see from charity to solidarity. Jesus doesn't simply have compassion for people who are suffering. He gets close. He crosses the boundaries of religion and ethnicity and gender and social status. And in doing that, he welcomes people who've been told that God doesn't want them. And that has produced intense suffering in this culture and in this climate. And when religious systems burden people rather than liberate them, Jesus would challenge those systems. He wouldn't let it go. And so divine love moves towards suffering. And we see that in Jesus. But we also see that something happens when you move towards suffering. From a distance, suffering can just be an issue, but up close, suffering, it has a name. It has a face. It has an awful story usually. And it has the ability to change us. And that's why liberation theology makes such an important distinction between charity and solidarity. Right? Charity says, I see that you got a problem, and I want to help. And that's amazing. That's awesome. If someone's hungry, we should feed them. If someone needs clothing, we give them clothing. If someone needs help paying their rent, we should help if we can. Charity matters. It's important. But solidarity goes further. Solidarity says, I'm coming over there. I'm going to listen. I'm going to learn your name. I'm going to hear your story. I'm going to allow your experience to change the way I understand the world. And eventually, if I stay close long enough, there is another question that starts to emerge. Why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening to you and to others? And see, that's that transition from charity to solidarity. Charity sees someone drowning, throws them a life preserver. Solidarity pulls them out of the water, though. And then eventually somebody walks upstream and says, why do people keep falling into the water? What's happening up there? And is there something that I could do, something that we could do to change the situation so that fewer people end up drowning in the first place? And that's when our solidarity and beliefs start to shape our behavior. And we see this in Jesus too. It's exactly what Jesus does. Jesus doesn't simply help people harmed by religious exclusion. No, he confronts the religious systems doing the excluding. In fact, the whole story is about that. He doesn't merely touch the people called unclean. He challenges the categories themselves that have been used to determine who's clean and unclean. He doesn't simply welcome outsiders. He tells stories where the outsider turns out to be the hero. Jesus moves towards suffering. And in that movement gets proximate, and his proximity is turned into compassion, and compassion is turned into solidarity, and solidarity begins asking what needs to be changed. And even the cross tells this story. God doesn't respond to human suffering from this safe distance. No, the story of the cross says that God enters it, that Jesus experiences the violence of empire, the judgment of religion, public humiliation, rejection, abandonment, death. The Christian faith makes this astonishing claim that somehow in Jesus, God has chosen solidarity with suffering humanity. God comes over here, which means following Jesus can't simply mean believing certain things about Jesus. It means learning to live like Jesus. And so our beliefs have to create behaviors that rewrite what is unacceptable in our world. You know, in a way, we've been practicing a version of liberation theology for years. We just haven't necessarily called it liberation theology. We've talked about it in terms, and we've called it our 5 unacceptable truths. These 5 realities in our world that we refuse to simply accept as, well, that's just the way things are. God will take care of it later. And liberation theology helps explain why we refuse to accept them, because divine love moves towards suffering. And so we've said spiritual emptiness is unacceptable. So we work towards spiritual vitality. Not because we need everybody to believe exactly what we believe. I mean, actually, it's almost the opposite. We just want to create space where people can ask questions, where we can all bring our doubts, where people who have maybe been wounded by religion can discover that spirituality doesn't really have to be frightening, certainly doesn't need to be controlling. We want to create space where people can experience and make meaning. They can experience mystery and community and love and hope. And if we believe every person is loved by God, then that belief has to affect the kind of spiritual community we create, right? Belief becomes behavior. Secondly, we've also said poverty is unacceptable. So what do? We work toward physical and financial flourishing. I said this earlier. Charity sees someone hungry and says, let me get you something to eat. And that's good. We should do that. But solidarity moves us closer and eventually requires us to ask, why are you hungry? We have to ask the tough questions. What's happening with housing? What's happening with wages? What's happening with healthcare? What's happening with access to opportunity? What is it that's keeping people trapped? And what can we change so that fewer people need our charity in the first place? Charity blossoms into solidarity. Now, we've also said illiteracy is unacceptable, so we work toward education and opportunity. You know, we can give a child a book. That's charity, and it's good. Our school supply drive that we're in right now with our partner school, Edmondson, is beautiful and it's necessary, but it's not enough. Solidarity asks whether that child has the same opportunity to learn and flourish as the child that lives 10 miles away. It asks what barriers are standing between that child and their future. And then it asks, what can we do about those barriers? You know, we've also said fear of the other is unacceptable. So we work toward inclusion and affirmation. Racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, discrimination in any form is anti-Christ behavior. Every story human beings have invented that allows us to divide the world into people who belong and people who don't destroys us. And it stands in opposition to the work of love. Again, belief has to become behavior. It's not enough to say, well, I'm not racist. I'm not a racist. Or I believe women should be treated equally. It's not enough to say, well, I don't have a problem with queer people. No, the question is, what happens when someone's dignity, the image of God, is threatened and I have enough power to do something about it? Do I move toward him? Do I stand beside him? Do I use my voice? Am I willing to put something at risk? And then finally, we say modern slavery is unacceptable. So we work towards freedom. Because wherever human beings are being treated as commodities rather than people, wherever someone's body, their labor, their sexuality, or their vulnerability is being exploited for someone else's benefit, divine love moves towards them. And so do we. And so these are 5 very different problems. But maybe now we can see that there's a thread that runs through all 5. Divine love moves us towards those suffering under them. And when we get close enough to suffering, charity begins blossoming into solidarity. And when solidarity helps us understand why people are suffering, our beliefs become behaviors that begin dismantling the things that cause the suffering. We get to the roots. And that's liberation theology. But I think it's also something else. It's hope. Because hope isn't believing everything is going to magically work out. We talked about this last week. Hope isn't closing our eyes, crossing our fingers, not looking at those who are suffering and saying, well, God has a plan. Hope isn't sitting around waiting for God to fix the world. Hope means looking honestly at the world as it is and refusing to believe that what is must always be what will be. And there's a person whose life can help us understand what that kind of hope looks like. His name was Oscar Romero. Romero was born in El Salvador in 1917. He became a Catholic priest and then eventually a bishop. And Romero wasn't initially known as a radical. It was kind of quite the opposite, actually. He was considered cautious, even traditional or relatively conservative. And when he was appointed Archbishop of San Salvador in 1977, there were lots of wealthy and powerful Salvadorians who were actually happy about it because they thought they knew what kind of archbishop they were getting, someone safe. But El Salvador was becoming an increasingly violent place. Poor farmers and workers were organizing for better conditions, and the government and the military, well, they were responding with repression and violence. People were just disappearing. People were being tortured and people were being murdered. And Romero began seeing it up close. And just weeks after he had become archbishop, something happened that changed him. One of his friends, a Jesuit priest named Rutilio Grande, was driving through the countryside. Now, Grande had spent years working alongside poor rural communities. He had helped people organize. He had taught them that their lives had dignity. But on March 12, 1977, Rutilio Grande was ambushed and murdered. And when Romero went to see his friend's body, something changed, or perhaps something became impossible for him to ignore anymore. You see, in that moment, suffering had come close enough to have a name. Rutilio. And Romero began moving toward it. He began listening to poor farmers, and he listened to families whose loved ones had just disappeared. And he listened to people who were being threatened by their own government. And something happened. Charity blossomed into solidarity. And Romero, he began using the power that he had. And his sermons were broadcast across El Salvador by radio. And he named the names of the people who had disappeared. He spoke about the violence that was being committed against the poor. He challenged the government. He challenged the wealthy. He challenged the military. Eventually, he even appealed directly to soldiers, asking them, compelling them not to participate in the killing of their own people. You see, his beliefs had become behavior. And that behavior was now confronting the causes of suffering. And on March 24th, 1980, Romero was celebrating Mass. And he stood behind the altar that day and an assassin came and shot and killed him. He died because he had decided that the gospel could not remain safely inside the church while people suffered outside it. Now, I don't tell you Romero's story because I think we're all supposed to become Oscar Romero. I tell you it because Romero demonstrates something that liberation theology wants every one of us to understand, regardless of our age, regardless of where we work or where we live. He used what he had. He had a voice, so he used his voice. He had a pulpit, so he used his pulpit. He had influence, and so he used his influence. He had the ability to stand beside people who had less power than he did, so he stood beside them. And that's where his story becomes ours. Because every one of us has something. A voice, a vote, money, relationships, a workplace, a classroom, a business, a neighborhood, a table where decisions are made, a moment when somebody is being diminished and we can either stay quiet or say something. The truth is, none of us can do everything, but we can all do something to participate in hope. Every one of us can move towards suffering. Every one of us can get close enough for charity to become solidarity. And every one of us can find some place where what we say we believe becomes something we actually do. And that's what I mean by participating in hope. You know, there's a phrase we've said around here thousands of times. It's on our signs, it's on our t-shirts, it's in our logo. And they are beautiful words. But liberation theology challenges us to make sure that they're more than just a slogan. It challenges us to make them become a promise. Hope is here must be more than a slogan. Solidarity and behavior turn it into a promise. When someone is spiritually empty and wondering whether there's anything meaningful left to believe, hope is here. When poverty is stealing someone's dignity and their opportunity to flourish, hope is here. When a child needs someone to believe in their future, hope is here. And when racism, sexism, or homophobia tells someone that they are less valuable, less worthy, or less loved, hope is here. And when someone is exploited or trafficked, enslaved, or robbed of their freedom, hope is here. Not because we printed those words on a logo, but because we showed up. Because divine love moved us towards suffering. Because our charity blossomed into solidarity. Because our beliefs became behaviors that began dismantling the causes of suffering. And that's how a slogan becomes a promise. And maybe that's what it means to be an everyday, normal peacemaker. We don't just believe in hope. What do? We participate in it. And participating in it means we move towards suffering. We stand in solidarity and we use whatever power we have. And wherever we find ourselves, we keep asking, what does liberation look like here? What does freedom look like here? What does hope look like here? And then we do whatever part is ours to do. We participate. We participate in justice. We participate in freedom, we participate in healing, we participate in loving, and together we are participating in hope. And we do this so that wherever people encounter us, you, me, individually, our church, wherever divine love sends us, wherever suffering needs someone willing to move toward it, those three words aren't simply something we say, they become something people experience. Hope is here. So what is God inviting you into today? Maybe it's to attend the interest meeting for the Happy Givers trip that's coming up. Maybe it's to read Gutierrez's book, A Theology of Liberation. Or there's a great lecture from 1998 on liberation theology from Father Richard Rohr on YouTube. Maybe sit down and watch that. You know, our communion symbols, they remind us each week that suffering is not the end of the story of life. It's not even the edge of the story of life, but it's the very center of it. It's just what happens. It's where we meet the divine. It's where we're transformed. And so today, wherever you are, I hope you have something there that can remind you of the communion elements, right? And that you can listen to this next video and think about how love is bigger than any of the unacceptable truths in this world. The lyric that challenges me the most in this song is a prayer that just says, I am yours, use me, Lord. Now, for me, this represents my desire to be used by love, not to be some slave to some Zeus-like deity far away in the sky, but to allow love to guide me and call me into solidarity and behavior that brings hope into the unacceptable truths of our world.
Love is able to provide. Love is faithful and perfect time. This goodness overwhelms. I am held through the fire. Love's my shield, and this protection never fails. No power can separate. I am safe. Love is bigger than all my fears. God of love, God is love. Love is bigger than all my dreams. God of hope, God of peace. Whatever will come my way through each day, I will say that I trust you. I trust you. Love's the treasure I desire. I surrender my whole life for love's glory, my great reward. I am yours. Use me, Lord. Love is bigger than all my fears. God of love, God is love. Love is bigger than all my dreams. God of hope, God of
Well, thank you for connecting via the broadcast this week. And now I want to offer you this blessing to take with you into your everyday normal life. May divine love move you toward the places where people are hurting. And may you have the courage to get close enough that suffering has a name, a face, and a story. And may your charity blossom into solidarity. May what you believe become how you live, and may your life help dismantle whatever keeps others from freedom, dignity, flourishing, and hope. And as you log off, as you leave this moment, may you remember that you and I are not called simply to attend church, that we are called to be the church. So go, move toward suffering, stand in solidarity, use whatever power you have. Participate in bringing justice, participate in freedom, participate in healing, participate in love. And wherever you go, may your presence help turn our slogan into a promise. Hope is here. Amen.